Analysis, sponsored by Specialty Orthopedic Group, specialized in patient-focused, state-of-the-art orthopedics. Well, the polls have closed across the state. Results have been rolling in throughout the night. And you can visit djournal.com to see the complete results. And we still have some coming in. So tune in to djournal.com throughout the evening and into the morning. Have some late precincts that we're still waiting on as of this broadcast. I'm Brad Locke, online content coordinator for the Daily Journal here, and joined by Chris Kieffer, managing editor for multimedia and in-depth reporting. It's kind of a mouthful.
You got it. You nailed it.
Former education reporter, maybe where you know Chris from. But anyway, we're going to spend a few minutes tonight looking at the races statewide, regionally, and in Lee County. Had a lot of races, Chris. It's been really crazy around the newsroom tonight, and trying to get all this straight. We have people in every county reporting in results to us, and had a lot of help up here from people that don't even work in the newsroom normally. So it's been a team effort.
Yeah, human resources and finance, business office.
People that are good with numbers.
Yeah, so, which is big. There's a lot of numbers tonight.
Because journalists are not that good with math. You may have heard that one. It's true. So we got a lot to cover now. We're just going to hit some highlights on this broadcast here for the next few minutes. Let's just first start with one of the statewide races, a couple of them, state auditor and state treasurer, both incumbents winning their Republican primaries on Tuesday night. Of course, Stacey Pickering, auditor, and Lynn Fitch, treasurer. I don't have the results right in front of me, but I believe Fitch's race was a little bit closer than was Pickering's. I can pull that up at a moment's notice. But yeah, Fitch with the 57%, with most of the precincts reporting over David McRae, and then you had again Pickering as auditor, and he fended off Mary Hawkins Butler, the mayor of Madison. Certainly made her push at the Neshoba County Fair. I guess this last week it was, Chris, and she went after Pickering with the whole supposed FBI investigation with his campaign finance spending. I don't know how many people thought that would make a difference in the race. Did that one kind of turn out like we thought?
Yeah, I think those were. If you look across the board, incumbents in terms of statewide office, the incumbents sailed through today. But those were the two races that people thought, if a incumbent, which could be a Republican incumbent, unless you're talking about Hood's office, everybody else is going to be Republicans, but if the Republican incumbent was going to slip up, those were the two that people were watching most closely. And as you said, both incumbents, Stacey Pickering and Lynn Fitch, won easily. People didn't know, with the allegations that that Mary Hawkins Butler had made at the last minute against Stacey Pickering about how he used campaign finances, allegedly used campaign finances to support different personal items.
Right.
If that was an effective campaign, and it obviously didn't.
He won by a 2-1 margin. Yeah, 2-1 margin for Pickering. And Fitch was being challenged by a guy who I believe David McRae had never been in any kind of political campaign and never run for office.
Right.
And he was going for a pretty big seat there as state treasurer.
And it also made some heavy allegations in terms of just that the office wasn't run well. There was a debate on whether or not that college prepaid savings plan should have been closed. Fitch said she did it to make the plan more solvent. He said that hurt the plan. He questioned some furniture that she bought for the office. And so, I think it was a couple cases where some challenges were making some heavy claims against incumbents, and it was just a question of whether or not those stuck. And in both cases, the incumbents weren't hurt by that.
And really, like you said, all the other statewide races pretty much went as expected. Of course, Phil Bryant, Tate Reeves advancing as we knew they would. So going into November, as far as those go, not really anything surprising as we look ahead to November for those races.
Oh, I'd say that the biggest surprise on a statewide level, it was probably Robert Gray winning, at least leading. I don't know if where we are as far as how many precincts are in and whether he's certain to. I think last we saw he was in good shape to win outright.
Yeah, he's as of this broadcast, 92% of precincts reporting. He's got 50.5% of the vote. Of course, you need 50 plus 1 to avoid the runoff, and so
he's safe for a runoff no matter what.
Right.
Which is
Vicky Slater in second.
Yeah, and if there was going to be a runoff, I mean, I think people figured that he would have been the one out of it, that it would have been Slater. And in short, Vicky Slater has kind of been the standard bearer. She's had the most attention, the most financing, traveled around the state, had different press conferences. I mean, I think everyone's kind of geared up for a Vicky Slater or Phil Bryant election. And Robert Gray is interesting because I was speaking with Bobby Harrison right before we went on air, our capital correspondent at Daily Journal, and he said he had just looked at the campaign finance reports, and Robert Gray did neither spent nor received any money on this campaign, and now he's a nominee for governor.
Like, he didn't even do campaign signs. He had to get his name out there somehow. I'll be honest.
Yes.
I mean, I don't follow politics as closely as a lot of people, but it's hard not to keep up with these kind of races. So I felt like I was pretty well informed on most of these candidates for the statewide races, and I knew of Robert Gray, but I didn't know much about him. And apparently, he's a truck driver who you said didn't spend really any money, and here he's got half the Democratic vote. Must have been a grassroots effort to get all those votes. But that would be interesting if he ends up winning that nomination. I mean, I still, looking ahead to November, it's hard to imagine him stopping the juggernaut of Bryant.
Yeah, but with that being an incumbent, and it's right now, when you look at all the statewide offices that Republicans hold in the state, it's hard to imagine a Democrat today winning that race in particular. And in particular, when it's someone who doesn't have the name recognition, it'll be hard to boost that within a couple months. It's going to be a difficult race, but I'll tell you what, in today's era of big money politicians and not really controlling races, to have someone win a primary for a major race without spending any money, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be picking his brain and, trying to learn, what you can learn from what he did. And, maybe he still has some magic in that bottle, but he'd need a lot of it to carry that in November. And, he might not even be I will call him a nominee, but, depending on how everything turns out, it could be a runoff. And
sure, again,
it may be lightning in a bottle. There's nothing to say that he would win the runoff. Maybe that the other people would have more time to organize, because, again, it's been a surprise. But like you said, I mean, he's had a great night tonight, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes after that.
If you're just tuning in, this is the live primary election analysis here from the Daily Journal. I'm Brad Locke with Chris and our editor, Rod Rahardo. Was going to join us, but he's busy trying to help get a paper out.
Yeah,
and everything. So again, it's been kind of nuts over here, but it's gone pretty well from our end, at least, for this election. And again, this broadcast brought to you by Specialty Orthopedic Group, specialized in patient-focused, state-of-the-art orthopedics. Give them a call at 662-377-3380. So, Chris, again, a lot of races to talk about, but we can't talk about all of them. So, what else kind of caught our attention tonight?
One thing is, looking at the legislative races, a lot of incumbents again did well, but probably in this area, the biggest, maybe most surprising race would be the Chad McMahon upsetting incumbent Nancy Collins, who just finished one full term and then had another year in there because she won the special election after Fallon Nunley's old seat when he was elected to the U.S. House. So, that was really interesting, and won pretty handily. I don't know with the last percentage.
I mean, it's a pretty healthy margin, 68 to 32% as of this broadcast, with more than 3/4 of precincts reporting. I mean, that is, it's surprising enough that he won, I guess, but to win in such dominant fashion, what do you attribute that to? Because I know his platform is a little bit unorthodox to some people.
Yeah, he had a weird coalition, and I think that's how he won by so much, and particularly being an incumbent by so much. I think it was kind of the storm where he had a lot of Tea Party support. He's been pretty active in the Lee County Tea Party and at various meetings and whatnot. And I know that there are a lot of people in the Tea Party that supported him, but he also had a lot of support of public education.
Right.
By some of her votes, Nancy Collins had drawn criticism from a lot of people in public education circles. And I think there were a lot of people maybe that were some of it were people who were unhappy with her, and he was able to win them to his side. And so you don't see a coalition very often today of having both Tea Party and public education, but in a sense, because what happened is I think Nancy Collins kind of got squeezed. The people to the right of her, in the Tea Party vote went against her. and then the people more toward the middle went against her,
Right.
and that kind of left her with a narrow base. A couple of the votes, the PERS vote that she had a couple of years ago, and then the special needs bill, the scholarship bill for special needs students for their private schools, both won her some supporters, and she had a lot of support from the Empower Mississippi PAC that was really coming down on Chad McMahon hard. And kind of once they did that, is when you kind of realize, wow, this race might be in play, that they're kind of going so hard against McMahon on it. But while it won her some support, it also lost her some support, and it sounds like a lot of that went to McMahon, and just kind of built that coalition. It'll be interesting to see going forward how you keep both. If that becomes his base, public education and Tea Party, there will be some issues that will come up that will be hard to keep both of them happy.
Right, because I mean he's a very closely aligned with Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves.
Well, Nancy Collins was closely aligned with Tate Reeves, and they were good allies.
Sorry, yes, you're right.
Yeah, he was. In fact, it's interesting you bring that up because Chad McMahon was a big supporter for Chris McDaniel, and of course there's that rivalry in the Senate right now between Chris McDaniel and his supporters and Tate Reeves. Right. And so it will be interesting. I obviously had to look at all the races statewide to see, whether that conservative coalition picked up many members, whether he'll join that coalition or not. But it will be interesting to see if this race in some ways kind of changes the dynamic in the Senate.
Okay. Again, you're watching live election analysis coverage. If you missed any of this, we'll have this up on the website for a while. You can watch the replay.
Let's go to the supervisor race now in Lee County. We've got Michaela Morris, the health reporter for the Daily Journal.
Bring her in
been filling in and covering supervisor for us, and she's going to speak about some of the things we saw. This is the Lee County supervisor race.
I can just totally move out of the way, Chris, because let's take up the screen.
All right, Michaela, we've had a lot of action obviously tonight. We've kind of gone through some of the statewide races. I know you've been watching closely a couple of races, the district attorney, but we'll talk first. Lee County had 3 contested supervisor races.
Yes.
And I'll let you kind of tell us what happened tonight.
Well, we had 3 contested supervisor races in District 2, which is South Hillo down and the northern part of Tupelo. That race is still in doubt because of a technical problem with the South Hillo box. However, Mike Smith is leading incumbent Bobby Smith by 400 votes. So it would take a lot to overcome that deficit. In District 3, we had a very crowded race with 6 Republican challengers who were lining up to try to get to the November election where they'll face a Democrat, Ricky Coker, who did not have any opposition. Danny Barrows, former city councilman, and Tony Roper, who is a farmer and former owner of Roper Toyota, ended up emerging in the runoff. Danny Barrows led the vote totals there. And in District 5, Billy Joe Collin, the incumbent, led Charles Dale Hurd, who is a Plantersville city alderman. They will face, or Billy Joe Collin will face Joe McKinney, the unopposed Republican, in the November election. Incidentally, that will be a three-peat for them. They have faced off 3 times. Joe has won once, Billy Joe has won once, so who knows this one?
Best out of 3, right?
So this one should be one for the ages because they've all been close.
Question is it the best out of 3, or is this just the latest leg of a best out of 7? So
I'm sure that's 2 gentlemen who are really set on serving the southeastern corner of Lee County.
Yeah. Any surprise? I know you've talked to most of the winners and the candidates, and anything that kind of stood out to you about those races tonight?
I know it surprised some people. Bobby Smith had served since 2000 and was generally well liked and well respected. Mike Smith ran a very big race and says he has no problems, a great deal of respect for Bobby Smith, but just felt called to run. So really, really interesting for the folks in the 2nd District, but definitely taking advantage of that big Republican ticket with a lot of action and a lot of races and a lot of interests. So that one is particularly interested in. And then District 3 on that Republican side, Danny Barrows certainly, I think, had a lot of name recognition because he had been elected before in Tupelo, which is a big part of that district. And then Tony Roper, of course, longtime businessman. So, but, you know, a lot of quality candidates in that field. I think people really probably had to think hard on that one. And then they still have a race. Of course, District 2 is decided because there were only Republicans in the race. If decided based on whatever comes out of that Saltillo box. But at least for now, Mike Smith is leading.
Sure. And then District 5 will be a lot of game film, looking back at the results from the last 2 elections and who won what box and where to make up the primary.
I think now
a lot of analysis going on there.
I think so, especially in that one. It's going to be interesting to see. This will be the first time, I believe, those two will have faced each other. Billy Joe Holland and Joe McKinney will have faced each other in a general election.
Sure.
Because in the previous elections, Joe McKinney ran as a Democrat, but he talked about how he looked at Lee County's changing political demographics and as well as his own convictions, and decided that he needed to be on the Republican side. But pretty much all of these county level candidates will tell you that national politics really don't enter into what the county needs and what their district needs.
Sure. One other race for Healy that you've been covering closely was the district attorney race. Where does that stand? It's kind of been changed. I haven't even seen the latest results. What does it look like right now?
It's covers 7 counties for 1st district attorney. Arch Bullard has a 7,000 vote lead on Paul Galt with better than 2/3 of the precincts in.
So looking like it's going to be.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty significant balance. I talked to Arch Bullard. He said Paul Galt had called him and conceded. Both of them had worked together as assistant district attorneys under Johnny Young. Paul Galt continued under Trent Kelly after 2012. I think both of them have a great deal of respect for each other. The winner will now face, or Arch Bullard will now face interim district attorney John Weddle. In the November election, John was unopposed for the Republican nomination. The governor named him the interim after Trent Kelly was elected to fill the remainder of Alan Nunley's congressional term.
Will that race in some ways resurrect kind of the Young against Kelly from 4 years ago? I mean, are the lines going to be kind of similar?
I would think that there's definitely a north versus south part of the district kind of vibe going on. And I think that'll be interesting to see how exactly that plays out. Both John and Arch are very well respected, with long histories of public service as attorneys. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes down as we get towards November. I think they're both tough attorneys, and
yeah, sure.
They have a great deal of respect for each other, but I think you're going to see some sharp divisions drawn.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Thank you so much for your time and for all your work tonight. It's been a long day for everyone here.
Yeah.
You've been working Working
It's
hard, so
part of how we earn our pizza and donuts.
yeah.
So.
There's been a lot of pizza and donuts tonight too. Thanks, Michaela.
Swing back around.
Shift chairs, play musical chairs
There we go,
again.
Chris. I'm back. Okay. Yeah, good stuff from Michaela Morris there. And well, Chris, what else you want to talk about? I know there was that wacky Lee County Circuit Clerk.
Yeah, talk about that.
The Lee County Circuit Clerk Democratic primary. Now, context: Joyce Lofton is retiring.
Right.
And so you've got basically 4 people vying for that job, 2 in each.
And a heated Republican primary.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of the race that we were going to be, really, when you kind of outline before you do it, these are the races to follow closely. We were really watching closely the Marion Gwynn Lewis against Camille Roberts Mangum race on the Republican side. And we were really expecting that to potentially be one of the close races of the night. But Camille, won pretty handily, and so she moves on to the runoff, and that had all set up. As you said, it was 2 Democrats, but is it? And I want to make sure I get the name.
Sheila Stubbs and Diane Lambert.
And Sheila Stubbs had withdrawn from the race. I don't know, a month or so. Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
she's still on the ballot.
Right, the ballot's been printed. They couldn't do anything about that, so Sheila Stubbs is still on the ballot, but she's not in the race. And of course, when that happens, and it happens now and then, when you go to the voting place, the polling places, they have signage up there that says, hey, so-and-so has withdrawn from the race. They're still on the ballot, but they're not in the race. So you're not supposed to vote for them. Okay, so in this case, Sheila Stubbs withdrawn from the race. They put the signage up at the precincts of Lee County, and people are supposed to see that and make the mental note. But as we sit here looking at the results with 37 of 38 precincts reporting, Sheila Stubbs has a 19-vote advantage over Diane Lambert. Now, you got that one box left.
It's a big box, a solid box. Yeah. And to kind of break that down too, there was a technical difficulty in that box. So people are, maybe still as we speak, and it's 11:40 at night on election night, they would be working late into the night, and maybe they finished it by now, but counting all those votes by hand. And we'll have those results to you at djournal.com probably first thing on Wednesday morning. And that could swing it, but with all but that one box, I mean, the fact that it's even close, I mean, what kind of just caught my attention is I wasn't even looking at that race. You kind of look to see how the Republican primary gone in that race, and then you've got Diane Lambert by herself waiting to advance, and all of a sudden, I think you told me that it was a tight race, and I thought it can't be. She's not in it, but
it slipped my mind for a moment that she was out of the race, and then I was like, oh wait. Sheila Stubbs is not supposed to be getting votes.
Right.
She's getting them. So if she ends up winning this primary, she will not actually advance because, again, she's out of the race. So what happens? Does Diane Lambert advance automatically? Maybe.
Yeah.
William Moore, our reporter on the scene, was talking to Joyce Lofton, the current clerk, and Joyce apparently not quite sure the resolution.
They've got to find out. But my understanding from William is, and I'm sure this will also be in his story that you can read tomorrow's Daily Journal, tjournal.com, and we'll certainly be following this through the day Wednesday as it develops. But my understanding from William is what Joyce Lofton says that they still have to look into what happens. It may be something that the Lee County Democratic Party, when they certify the results, has some wiggle room to certify the person who was still in the race, and maybe the Attorney General's opinion. And so I don't know which one goes on, and maybe it all takes care of itself when they count that Saltillo box, and that'll be it. And
maybe Lambert pulls ahead.
Lambert pulls ahead after that. But if not, it will be interesting to see what happens. Whether you have to go to, like I said, to the Attorney General or to the state party or somewhere else.
Intrigue.
Yeah,
right. Circuit clerk race. So yeah, we'll follow that story, like we said, see what happens with Diane Lambert and that Democratic primary. Okay, Chris, what else we got?
Yeah,
anything worth mentioning that
the only other thing, and before we kind of wrap up, superintendent of education race. So in Lee County, you had first term incumbent Jimmy Weeks running against former principal Robert Smith. They had both run in the Republican primary 4 years ago. Jimmy Weeks won the election tonight, or I guess is leading.
There's one precinct out.
Yeah, with one precinct out, he's up 55%, 45% by about 500 votes. So you have a pretty safe lead.
Yeah.
To be reelected as superintendent.
And faces no opposition in November.
No opposition, so that determines that race. Tomorrow is also the first day of school in Lee County, so he told our reporter Emma Crawford, who's covered that race, about just kind of a short night between celebrating a little bit of the election and getting ready to start another school year. But so that kind of means the district will be staying in the same trajectory in terms of same plans, same leadership. We kind of going forward with the same leadership team.
And you're very familiar, obviously, with Jimmy, having covered education for several years for the Journal. And I was listening to some of Robert Smith's ads, and he talked about investing more in teachers and not hiring administrators, which I assume was a shot at Jimmy Weeks. What's kind of the underlying issue there?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there were some shots that he took. It wasn't I wouldn't call it a nasty race, but I mean, certainly. I mean, obviously, when you're running against an incumbent, you'll find things to look at, and so that was one of the things I remember that he talked about, and I know when we had interviewed him for it, he talked about just different complaints he had heard from teachers and people who called him about issues that he was planning to come in and address, and then but Weeks obviously has a lot of people who have as the vote showed tonight, who appreciate it and support the job he's done, and I guess validated those efforts too.
All right. We good, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say before we go to superintendents, and I don't know if all these are final. But there were some interesting numbers that I was seeing from incumbents not doing so well tonight.
I had a couple upsets.
In Alcorn County, former principal Larry Mitchell had, again, with the last numbers I saw, 71% of the vote against incumbent Gina Roger Smith, and in Pontotoc County, Kenny Roy, who was the incumbent, also was trailing against Brock Puckett, who's in the Lee County School District as student services director. And from the last numbers I had seen, and I don't think those were final because we were getting Pontotoc boxes late. We might have something more, but the last number there was 63% for Brock Puckett.
Now up to 65% with about 3/4 of the precincts reporting. So he's got a commanding lead, there in Pontotoc.
Yeah, whereas Prentice County, it looks like the incumbent Randall Downs was ahead, and Union County, the incumbent Ken Basil's ahead, although he still has a Republican to face in November. But,
and it looks like Basil is going to be in a runoff. Actually, he's going to be in a runoff. With all the precincts reporting, you got 46% of the vote, and Loretta Hartfield got 28%. Walter Moore with the remaining 25%. So Ken Basil, I guess he's going to have to be in the runoff. Which the runoff is 3 weeks from
25th.
The 25th.
August 25th.
Okay. In fact, I was just looking on Ken's Facebook page. Work left to be done, he says. So yeah, he's definitely got a runoff to prepare for.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, and then you'll have another fun in November. So, but a couple of incumbents going down. I don't know enough about those individual races that are dynamic at the moment, but it's certainly interesting when you see that happen. And again, I don't know if those are final, and maybe those incumbents can still rally as more boxes come in, but it was interesting to see them behind by so much at this point anyway.
Yeah, a lot of precincts or few precincts still left to report, and again, some of these, they're not going to get finished counting until after midnight into Wednesday morning, and so you can keep checking on the results at djournal.com. There's a big banner right there you can click on and go find the election results. It's a really nifty layout. You can go look by county, look by race, whatever. And so stay tuned to that. But it does look like most of the races are pretty well decided, Chris. So we'll have full coverage in the Wednesday Journal at djournal.com. And just appreciate y'all tuning in tonight for this 2015 election analysis. Again, brought to you by Specialty Orthopedic Group, specialized in patient-focused, state-of-the-art orthopedics. And for Chris Kieffer, I'm Brad Locke. Good night.
Thank you very much.